Dave. Right, connecting to the cloud server. Great. So, good morning, everybody. How are you? More particularly, Pavlina. I'm thrilled to be joined by Pavlina this morning for a conversation. We had some technical difficulties, so this is a rerun of an interview we did a few days ago. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do this again. How are you today, anyway?
I'm good.
Pavlina,
Thanks.
how are you today?
I'm so glad we can do this finally. Good to see you.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Okay, so, and you, it's been ages. The last day when we started, I asked you the first question was, how did you get into engraving? Like, I think you said were you in art college, or tell me the story how you got into engraving.
I started to engrave gemstones when I was 15. We have these schools in the Czech Republic called the secondary school, and it's both learning practical things and drawing, art classes, and also like normal school subjects like maths and physics and so on. So I started when I was 15, and I had a chance to learn all the gemstone techniques like faceting and making larger sculptures and also carving gemstones, which I liked the most because the other parts were too technical for me, and I thought there was not room for creativity in it. So I didn't want to do that. Yay. And when I finished,
I remember you saying that like,
when I finished my
we have a
gym.
bit of a time delay. I do remember.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you now.
We have a bit. Okay, so we have a bit of a time delay. So I'm just going to pop questions and then leave you talk. Okay. So when you were saying about the creativity thing, you felt kind of limited with the it was quite mathematical, the gemstone cutting.
Yes, the faceting, it's very geometric. You know, just flat flat areas around the stones. Well, there's nothing interesting about it for me. You just do what you're supposed to do, what you know it should look like, and there's no room for for your thoughts or ideas in it.
My brother's a goldsmith, so I'd understand the gemstone cutting from a perspective of the way diamonds are cut, where somebody would start with a very rough diamond and then figure out what's the best cut that they can put on. So I appreciate that. So when you moved on from gemstone cutting, what was the next step?
When I was finishing my school, I was thinking what to do next, because I knew I wanted to do the carving, not the other parts of gemstone techniques, only this one. And I just learned that there was no school or no classes to take. So I thought, maybe I can try glass. Why not? And there was this school symposium. I was lucky. It was a good timing because our region asked the students to apply for a symposium. So I was able to design my piece and make it in some other school. So, for example, I made a design for a glass piece, and I went to another school, a glass school, and engraved it there. So it was a perfect chance for me to try engraving. And I did, and I thought, yeah, glass is not that bad. I could try to continue this way. Why not? So I applied for school in November.
So who are your Who were your lecturers or teachers there?
I was lucky to have Jiří Tesař as a teacher. He was my engraving teacher, and he really wanted to teach me everything because he knew I wanted to do it. I wasn't there just sitting and I don't know, trying things. I just wanted to do it really. So he was happy and he showed me everything. Everything.
Okay.
So he taught me how to set wheels and all kinds of materials. We worked with diamond wheels, copper wheels, all kinds of stone wheels, just everything. It was great. He also showed
Um,
me all different kinds of techniques, like.
okay, I'll come back to that.
Mhm,
When we were talking the other day, you mentioned you had a teacher who spoke to you about drawing, and a lot of your drawings were about light and shade. And he said
mhm.
something about making it into a 3D version can be it can make it more than just a two-dimensional drawing. Do you still have that kind of in the back of your head when you're working on glass now?
Yes, of course, of course. My drawing training was very important to me at the secondary school, at the gemstone school. I had a teacher who was really precise, and he wanted us to make exactly the drawing we wanted to engrave later or cut.
Mhm.
And then we would have to really focus and follow the original drawing. We would even make plaster models for our projects, and we had to follow the plaster model exactly. Oh, it was a great training. I don't like I'm okay with that. It was a great idea, but later when I switched to glass, my teacher was a sculptor. His name was Mr. Machach, and he was a great sculptor and glass artist. And I was used to really like following the drawing. And once at the
Yeah.
beginning he said, we are not slaves to our drawings. You just need to be open-minded and improvise. Just follow the tools you are using. You can learn from them also, and I think that's great.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a great
Mhm,
idea in the sense that I suppose somebody who learns to engrave, take me for example, I learned it from a commercial perspective. Somebody gave you a
mhm.
logo, put that on the glass. It's very technical, it's very exact. But
Yes,
when you master the tools to allow more creativity and expression into it, you go on to a whole new level.
mm. Well, yeah, engraving a logo is a different chapter, but when you're making something like lively or and I don't know, a figure, portrait, animal, something you need to breathe life in,
Mhm.
you cannot be technical.
No.
uh, when I when I started to work for Lobmeyer company in Vienna, I had a colleague whose engravings were perfect,
Mhm.
totally perfect, but they were not alive. I mean, he would make a figure and it would look like a perfect sculpture.
Yeah.
Not
It's,
There was no life in it. So I admire
I
his
suppose.
skills, but it's not enough. I think it was only perfect.
Yeah, there's a big difference between the two. So tell me about so after you did your training,
Mhm.
what was the next step? What happened next?
Uh,
You
well, there
did
was
it.
there was another symposium like the one I participated in my original school. There was another symposium like that, and I was my work was awarded by Moser Glassworks, which is a really big company in the Czech Republic. And after awarding me, we had a talk with the Moser engravers, and they said they would like me to work for them. And I didn't have any plans yet
Mm.
at that point. So I said, yeah, I need a job because I would really like to do engraving after school. So this might be a nice option. So I came to Moser, and I looked around, and I was thinking, maybe this is not what I really want. It might be a good job, but I still need something else. But later, but yes, I thought, okay, it's good place to start with. But I was lucky
So,
because yes.
so you worked for Lovemeyer for a while, and then moved to Moser. Is that right?
No. I was still at school, and Moser invited me to work for them, and I was
All right.
thinking
Okay.
about it, and thinking, yeah, maybe that's a good place to start. But later, still when I was still at school, we did a school trip to Vienna, and we visited the Lobmeyer showroom and museum, and it was all very beautiful, and I couldn't breathe how beautiful it was. And everything so perfect, and all the glass was very thin. It was really impressive for an engraver to see the quality, and also the company is 200-year old. They just celebrated 200 years this year. And it's
That's
wow.
amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's, oh, it's just
Um,
something you
yeah.
don't see every day. It's like a
No,
museum.
it's not. No.
Mm-hmm.
So, the last day we were talking, you mentioned about the first day that you walked into the place and saw all the machinery and all that glass and how impressive it was. So, did you stay with them for long, or how did that work out?
Yes. So they wanted me to work for them. I said, first I said, no, I can't, because I thought I'm not good enough for that. I can never be this good. And but then later I changed my mind. I thought myself, okay, I try. When I'm not good enough, I just leave. Easy. And they wanted they waited for me to finish my school, and then I moved to Vienna, and I worked for, and I promised at the beginning I would work for them for at least 5 years, because they said, you're a student without much experience now. We will invest our time in you and experience, and we have to give you normal money. So let's say you will work here for 5 years at least. So I promised. And I must say that at the beginning, I had to remember many times, like, oh, I promised to stay for 5 years, because I felt so bad. The first year and a half, I was I was crying quite often, because I felt miserable. I felt so bad. Like, I will never learn this. Really, it's so difficult. Oh, it was really
If it's
advanced.
any, if it's any, if it's any consolation to you, the first day I walked into Waterford Crystal, I got the job with her, and they set me up with a sharp wheel, and they just said to cut straight lines up and down the glass. And I
Uh-huh.
spent the day at it, and I went home in tears, thinking, "Jesus Christ, I can't do this. I
Yeah.
can't do this."
Uh-huh.
And it was an awful shock to the system, because when you're that age, you kind of think, I could do anything. Like this should be easy, but it's not easy, and that's why they probably asked you to do 5 years so that you would be a good engraver and you'd learn everything. Do you find it disappointing or sad that there's not many places that take on apprentices to do that kind of thing now?
Oh, well, maybe mm, maybe there are not many places like that, but there's also not enough interest, I think. when I talked to the Lobmeier people now that they were opening their 200-year anniversary exhibition in Kamenický Šenov, and they are looking for workers, but it's not easy to
Really.
find them. Yes, the
Um,
kids now
which kind of
don't.
brings us on to
Mhm,
it brings us on to something that we spoke about the last day about having
mhm,
people nowadays don't necessarily have the patience to spend hours working on something. They want
mhm,
fast results. They want something done very quickly, and
mhm.
that's
Yes.
probably the biggest issue that we face. Lots of people would like engraving, like to do it, but they just don't have the patience for it.
Yes, yes, yes. And also, well, you really need to invest a lot of time learning it, doing the boring practical things, practicing lines and half half moons and all these, like, I thought it was really boring at the beginning. My teacher wanted me to do this repetitive work around drinking glass, and I was like, are you crazy? I cannot spend the whole day like this. I will die. My creative soul is dying. But of course it's
But
necessary.
it pays dividends now, though.
Sorry.
Yeah, it is.
hmm
So, um, so you spent a couple of years with them, and then what was the next stage?
8 years.
What I'm getting
It
around
was
to
actually 8 years.
is the teaching and taking over the Dominic Byman school and so on. 8 years.
Mhm. 8 years, yes. I spent 8 years, and then I finally felt ready to build my own studio in the Czech Republic, and I moved. I was sorry to move in a way because I really loved the company and the people also. They are very nice people.
Mm-hmm.
And the glass we were making was so beautiful, so elegant. mm. I can say I miss it sometimes. It's a very beautiful kind of work, but it was necessary for me to move on, and I'm happy for the change. Yes, I did. It was good. So
Absolutely.
while I was still working
Go
for
ahead.
Lobmeyer, I was spending I was allowed to work in the workshop whenever I wanted. Like after work, I could stay in the studio and also to use cutting department and everything. So I just did it. I would stay every day. My colleagues would finish at 4:00, and they say, "Hey, goodbye. You are still staying." They would say at the beginning. After half a year, I had to leave at 4 o'clock once, and they were like, "What? You are leaving?" So everyone got used to me sitting there every day, every day, whole day, and even in evenings, and also weekends very often. So I was really
It,
using that opportunity to
it's
create
important.
my things. hmm
It's kind of those kind of times and that kind of effort is important to get to the level that you're at. It also
hmm
shows huge passion for the craft that you would put in those extra hours to master it.
hmm Yes. It was also important for me because they knew immediately when they met me. I think they understood very well that I cannot do only craft only. Of course, doing perfect craft is a lot, but for me it was really important to make my things, my works. I just needed my own projects, making big things and colorful things, just different, something mine. So
Can I
they
ask,
they really
can I ask,
understood and they
can I
supported
ask you then
very
about?
much. hmm
Okay, so during the day you worked with an engraving lathe. In the evenings you would have worked with larger cutting mills. Behind you, I can see it's you told me it's your own personal lathe. It's the the brass one. Do you have, if I remember correctly, you have a portable marker machine there as well, but do you have any other larger machines to work with, or just those two?
This is my home studio. This is a corner of my bedroom at home, because my official studio is in progress. I had to move from my original place where I was working for like 5 years. And but then my daughter was born and I had to quit, and we bought a house, and the first floor is mine. It will be my studio space for me, for students. There is actually, it's not ready yet, but the things are already there waiting. Like this, Pavlina, when are you coming? So I have spazier machines. uh, these are my favorite ones. I really like using spazier because they are so stable. So really, like, you can push hard and they never move even a millimeter. I love that. Really. So spazier machines
Yeah,
are my favorite.
they're a great machine.
Yes, yes. Very
The brass one behind you, it's my ambition to get one of those somewhere. But I'd say that's a very delicate machine to work on, and you'd only do very fine work with it.
Yes, yes, yes. I always start when I need to carve deeper relief or make something deeper. I start with the other machine I have here. This one. Ta-da! Yes. The Mercury portable machine, and I have a set of these guys. These are my diamond wheels. So I use these first to build the relief or the sculpture, and then this little friend of mine is my helper to make the surface beautiful, to make a
Okay.
nice finish, and also the detail for the detailed work.
So when you talk to me about the wheels, where on the portrait marker you have lots of diamond wheels, are they solidly mounted, or are they the kind of interchangeable ones? Which ones do you prefer? And then talk to me about how much copper that you use.
So those are just built on a steel spindle. They could be remounted, but I never do it because
Okay.
I just don't want to risk vibration. Exactly. So I use many diameters and shapes. I always start with big ones. You know how that is. You start with big ones and go to smaller, 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 and the smallest. And then I do the same thing with copper. I don't have as many copper wheels here as I would need. I would need more, but this is my home studio. I cannot really move everything here. What a pity. I would like to, because I really like this.
So I noticed before we came on, I was doing a bit of research on some of the pieces that you've done. And we spoke the last day. You were saying that a lot of the glass in the Czech Republic is quite hard, so you don't carve in very deep. You can use diamond wheels to get an initial depth, if you like, but you don't go terribly deep into the glass. Is that because that's your own style? It's faster to do it that way, or the glass is so hard?
It depends on what I want. You know, I'm an impatient person in a way. When I master some kind of technique, I get bored immediately and I need to learn a new technique.
Okay.
So it very much depends on what I want to do. When I worked for Lobmeyer, the glasses we were engraving were sometimes less than 1 millimeter thick. And yes, less than 1 millimeter, crazy. And well, not 1 millimeter thick, actually, it was 1 millimeter thin. And so you can imagine how deep the relief was. You cannot do this with diamond wheels. if you want to achieve really detailed work, there's no room for relief. So we would work only with copper wheels the whole time, and quite fine abrasive. So that was my work for Lobmeyer, and also the glass was not lead crystal. It was the soda lime, which is harder.
Yeah, it's very slow to work, isn't it? It's like optical glass. It's rock hard.
Yes, it's harder. It's not as hard as optical, but definitely harder than lead crystal. I liked working with that kind of glass because there was enough time to build the whole thing and to play with details. And I actually really like thin glass because it's not heavy. It's really nice for my fingers to work with something light.
Okay, that's a good reason. So can I ask you about portraits then? So you a lot of your portraits would be quite accurate, where somebody would have maybe sent you a picture or something and said, can you put this portrait on glass? But then as you mentioned earlier, sometimes if you have more freedom, it can be more expressive. Instead of doing like a photographic replica, you can maybe capture somebody's character. Which do you prefer doing?
I really like using the overlaid glass for portraits because it's not about sculpting the thing. It's not a sculptural work. It's more like drawing or painting. You work with lights and shadows, not with deep and shallow, but with light and shadow. I really like doing this because I can use the tool like a brush, and so when I wanted to engrave a baby portrait, I would use copper wheels with very very fine abrasive, and I would really make it nice and smooth with low speed on my machine. And once I engraved a really old woman, and her face was full of wrinkles and beautiful stories written in her around her eyes, and all these stories. And so you cannot capture all these stories just with low speed and fine abrasive. It would just lose the spirit. So I switched to higher speed and rougher abrasive, and that was it. Perfect. It was like very expressionist painting. Like you could see all these brush strokes in the face, and it was perfect. It's so good to test all these options we have all on the machine, and with all the different tools we can use. It's good to learn all these tricks because then you have a whole palette of colors for your painting.
Great point. I would like to cover a couple of things. I'd use diamond, copper, and stone. The reason I'd use stone is because the extra texture it gives you, and you get a full spectrum of different techniques or textures. And then on the subject of portraits, there was a guy. He still works in Waterford. We used to get these terrible photographs, you know, an old Polaroid photograph, and do somebody's portrait from that, and it'd be out of focus and be not that person, the person standing in the background. You'd have to zoom these things, and it'd be terrible. But if the person had a mole here, he'd put it in. If they had a wrinkle there, he'd put it in. And the idea being that he would have exactly as was asked to capture the person that way, which is like the same as doing a photograph. But like you said earlier, sometimes they can appear not so much lifeless, but it's just kind of there's no essence or substance in it because it is a photograph. But
Yes.
I think it depends on the portrait, who the person actually is, which way you'd go, whether you treat it as a photograph or do it a bit more expressive. But you do fantastic portraits, and someone that come to mind, I can't think of the names or who they are, but you mentioned recently that you were doing one for a professor. How did that turn out?
The professor I engraved last week.
Yeah.
So I was asked to engrave a portrait of professor who passed away a year ago, and she was really important for the university where she taught. So they decided to name one room after her, a
Oh, very
lecture
nice.
room, and they wanted a glass plate, really like big glass plate next to the door with her portrait and some writing talking about her. And I was asked to make the portrait. I was it was not very thick glass, but it was heavy, so the relief had to be quite shallow, not very deep, because I didn't want to hold the heavy thing the whole time. Yes, I
That's
started with
that's an
diamond
interesting
wheels.
point.
Yeah, I started to work with diamond wheels. Exactly. I planned exactly where my cuts will be because I didn't want to hold it for a long time. So I actually spent a lot of my time drawing precisely where the cuts would be.
Um, you
And
mentioned about
I did the
you mentioned about the
uh-huh.
weight. So
Yes,
can
yes,
can
yes.
I ask you this? Do you um I would notice now that because I'm more connected with lots and lots of different engravers. It's I wouldn't say it's 50-50, but I'd say there's probably more women involved in engraving now than fellas. And you make the point about strength. It's not necessarily about strength, but I think sometimes it's the artist. You can if you have a huge piece to work on, yeah, you'll find a way to work with strength wise. But a lot of the time, it's not about the size of the piece or the weight. It's the subject. So it's kind of what do you think of that? Would you think there's more women involved in engraving now than guys?
I don't know. I don't know. It just differs. Uh, it's more matter of personality than men and women, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Everyone, like I know women who make really large pieces because they are able uh, to think about it correctly. Like they just find a way to use many pieces to make it look huge. Or it
So I'll come out of I'll come out a similar question in a sense that it's not so much about male or female, but you like teaching. You do a lot of teaching. Would you see and we spoke before where there's less and less people that are coming into the craft. Where do you see our craft in 10 years time?
Oh, that's very hard to say. Right now, I think it's quite popular to call engraving like to call all kinds of things engraving. So it depends on what exactly what you want to call engraving. Like
So,
where's the border to call the technique engraving and where it's something else. I think like with the hand tool, everyone can do it and quite quickly. Not in the master level, but in some basic. But with just a few scratches, you can already make something beautiful. Why not? You
yeah,
don't have to make deep relief. And I'm not saying you cannot use it really like in a masterful way. You know, engravers who
Alison, when
yes,
I was talking
Alison
to Alison
or
Kinneard,
Nancy. Nancy uses the hand tool really
Mhm.
well, really precisely, and really it's a beautiful work what she does.
When I was
Uh,
talking to Alison a couple of months ago, in the same thing for same format interview, she used to say it used to drive her crazy that people would say, "Oh, you do etching," which is kind of completely
mhm,
different again. That our definition of engraving might be limited to wheel work, but you are correct. Somebody can sit down with a nail and scratch out something that looks
mhm,
very artistic and so on. So
yeah.
it's interesting that way. But no, what I'm getting at is in terms of wheel engraving, because um, you do a lot of teaching where somebody can go do a couple of weeks with you or with some other tutor. And because we don't have apprenticeships at the moment, do you
Mhm.
think you'll see more people that will take on the challenge and spend a lot of time learning to engrave themselves to get to a master level if we don't have apprenticeships?
Mhm. Um, I had many students who would come again and again to my
Mm-hmm.
classes and practice meanwhile
Yeah,
in their home studios. I think that's a good way.
yeah,
Actually, if you are not able to go to school or have some like regular classes somewhere, this is a great way. I really had a few students who came to several classes, and you could see the difference, the progress in their work, and that's amazing. They would have something
it,
like some other day job.
it's absolutely key to
uh,
it's absolutely key to mastering the craft of practice. Like the
mhm,
courses are great, and the
mhm,
fact that we have a few different things through the internet to look up stuff is great. But it's absolutely is practice. There's no way around it. You just have to practice. So
yes.
we'd agree on that one.
Mhm,
So in terms of teaching, you've been all over Europe. You've been to Japan,
mhm,
America,
yes.
been to Australia? No.
No, no, not
Okay,
yet.
not yet.
Hopefully
Good
in the
point.
future.
In the future. I ask you about something else now because I'm conscious of time, not to be taking up your whole day. So, printing. The last day we spoke, I was saying to you that from my background, it was never something that caught on where people would make prints of their work. The only time we would do it is to make a rubbing of engraving just as a record, so that if you had to go do the thing next year, you'd have a reference. But
Mhm,
you do a lot of printing, you play with different colors and ink and stuff.
mhm.
Talk to me about that. How's that done and so on?
I mostly do printing on my workshops and in my classes, because I really like the social aspect of that. Doing that by myself is kind of lonely.
Hmm.
I don't like that as much. But I just remembered I wanted to show you something. I have this
Okay.
cool little hand press at home. It's a quite a
Okay.
heavy thing with little balls in on the bottom that each of them
Okay.
uh, is rolling, and all of them are turning like that. And you don't have to have the big
Yeah.
printing press. You just need this little thing, and you paint your glass, you put paper on the top, and then you do this for some time, and it works really nicely. It's a perfect little thing
Okay.
for small studios. I'm going to bring this to Frauenau this year, where we are teaching together with Ursula Merker. We are doing a school of Jiří Harcuba, which is, of course, dedicated to Jiří Harcuba's work. But the program mostly is printing. Ursula
Okay.
is a great printer, and I don't know whether she knows this or not. Maybe she will learn something new too in her age. That's great.
Every day is a school day.
Yes, I love it. And this is really
This
what I
is
love
cool.
to do in my classes, playing and trying new things, and also learning from students, because this is it's a creative process. Everyone tends to do things differently. People like using the wheels differently. Some tend to work more into depth. Some like textures and shallow cuts, and really like playing with the texture and with the
I've
finish.
seen there's quite a few members of the Facebook thing, and they work above the wheel.
Hmm, sorry.
They work above the wheel. So if your wheel is here, they put the glass down on top. They cut from
I
above
see.
rather than raise the glass to it. But you are correct. When different people come to a workshop or something, you can learn from them because they see things differently,
Yeah.
and it can open your mind to sort of, oh, I never thought of doing it that way. And I can see how doing the printing can be fun because it's only a piece of paper. It's not like a very expensive piece of glass that if it doesn't turn out, try again.
Yes,
So yeah,
yes,
that
yes,
that can be fun.
exactly. I
Um,
actually like when people come to my class and they have different background. One is a teacher of history, the other is, I don't know, a biology person, or or a physician or something, and they just have a different approach to life, and also the themes they work with are completely different, and they like different colors, of course, and because
mhm.
they don't know anything about how things should be done, that's perfect too. Because they are
They
open-minded.
don't know the rules.
Uh-huh, yes, exactly. Like when I came to my higher
Yeah.
school, the glass school, with gemstone background, I was new to everything, and like ready to do research. And there were the glass students who studied glass before, and they were like, yeah, yeah, another glass school, okay, let's do this, we know how to do it. And they were not open-minded at all. I think that was my advantage, coming from slightly different but still different technique,
Okay.
because carving a rock is, is really quite quite different.
Different. So I'm going to ask you about something that is different. So mold device. You okay? So you started in glass, and a lot of your work now is with the mold device. Talk to me about that. What is it, and what kind of work do you do with it, and so on.
Mhm. Moldavite is very cool, because the origin was 15 million years ago, when a meteor hit the Earth in Germany and melted all the rocks and soil and everything around. And then the molten glassy material was ejected to the space again and fell down in the Czech Republic. So we are lucky because the Germans got the hole and we got the pretty green stuff. And so Moldavite
Okay.
can be found only in the Czech Republic, nowhere else in the world. It's natural glass, and you can find usually small pieces, not very big, not like this. I think the biggest one was like this size, maybe 200 gram, and that's that's it. I usually carve sizes, like pieces of this size. That's the
Is
most.
it the same texture, hardness as glass, or is it more brittle, or what's it like to work?
It's a little harder. It's like borosilicate glass or some these harder types of glass. It's a little harder, but you can still use the same techniques. I usually start with diamond wheels and finish with copper wheels and some polishing. Oh, polishing is a great chapter too,
Mm,
actually, because there are so many grades of polishing you can achieve on
yeah.
glass or on moldavite. And gemstone carvers don't have the experience that I have with glass. So I have seen Moldavite carvings done by gemstone people, and I never see so many grades of polishing. I never see copper wheel. Of course, who would use copper wheel on stone? It's different. So I have this advantage of the glass training, actually, also with this material. It's cool, and because
I suppose,
uh-huh.
like you say about the so we're using carborundum as an abrasive, but a polish is actually a very fine abrasive. So we're still using abrasives. It just goes into, instead of carving the glass, it just gets to a point where it polishes and polishes and polishes. So when you look at it from that perspective, you go from kind of +10 to -10. That are they the same polishes that you'd use on glass that you're using on moldavite? Same.
Moldavite, yes, of course, with different different gemstones, it's completely different because they have very different hardnesses. So for very soft gemstones, you have to use different tools than for the very hard ones. And also, of course, the speed is different. Like using a very soft material means that you spend 10 minutes on it doing the same like you would do for hours with very hard material. Oh, I don't know if you can
Okay.
even work with diamonds that way. Maybe not. I mean, carving a diamond, I don't know
So
whether it's even possible. Probably not.
I don't know
I've never seen.
either. So it's mostly small jewelry pieces and brooches that you make with moldavite, is it?
It's either small sculptures,
Yeah.
because there are many Moldavite collectors around the world, and so it's the same for them, an object like
Okay.
a
And
Moldavite is an object for them, is a piece for their collection, and carved Moldavite is the same thing, just a piece for their collection. So
okay.
some collectors really display them nicely in showcases with light around, and that's what I like a lot, when my pieces end up with
So
such a collector.
you're very busy with that. So is kind of is your working day split between moldavite and glass, or is it mostly moldavite now?
It's mostly Moldavite. Yes, sometimes I do some portrait work, like the professor last
Mhm.
week, or I will engrave a portrait of a famous actor who died 30 years ago. So there's an anniversary, and there will be an exhibition about him. That's what I'm going to make by the end of summer, probably. And I'm looking forward to it. I really like because I've been doing Moldavite for too many years already, and I'm getting bored, and I need to start
I
something
would
new
say
again.
um, just when you mentioned that you get bored, I would say, I know as a self-employed engraver, the last thing I want to do is paperwork and taxes and all that kind of rubbish. That I'd much rather be working. I'd say
Yes,
you're the same.
that is true. That is
Yeah.
true.
Okay. So tell me this now, just before we wrap it up. So you're very busy. You have a lot of work ahead of you. Do you have a lot of schools over the summer? You do. Where
Mm,
are they?
uh, this year, I was invited to teach in Corning and Frauenau. But the class in Corning was cancelled because there were not enough students applied until the deadline.
Okay.
So that was cancelled, and there will be a nice school in Frauenau. I think we will enjoy. There's quite many students applied for the school of Jiří Harcuba. I teach together with Ursula Merker, and she's a very nice company also. So that will be perfect. End of summer. Very
So
nice.
you're busy. Good.
Mhm.
I'm delighted to hear it. So
Actually,
look,
Pavlina
we're
is
coming
one of
up on
my.
just close to an hour now.
Uh-huh. Yes. Yes. Really? Oh.
Yeah, really, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it flies.
Yes.
I try to keep it just under an hour because I think people, they'll stick with something for an hour or so and then they get kind of, oh. So yeah, listen, just to wrap up things, I'm absolutely thrilled to talk to you twice. We had an audience with us the last time, and when we threw it open to questions to the audience, Alison Kinnaird asked you, do you find it difficult to switch from doing sculptural type work to intaglio work?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I don't. I know that many people do, because. But I think at the beginning, when people start engraving, it's actually quite difficult for them to work on intaglio. And
To switch,
yes.
yeah.
Mm-hmm, yes. Because my first training was gemstone engraving, and I would do the cameo, the positive relief. Uh, for me, it was really hard to start doing intaglio. To remember that the deepest part is actually the one closest to you, and the other way around. I think it's really difficult to understand. And what I did at the beginning was I would sculpt relief in clay, and I would make a plaster model out of it. So I got the opposite relief in
Yeah,
plaster,
okay.
so I could understand what's going on in in the relief actually. Oh.
I would say to people, you can use in this country it's called Play-Doh. It's a soft putty. It's like plasticine. And when you
Mhm.
carve into something, if you push it in against it and peel it back, you get a relief, so you can see where what parts you need to work.
Mhm.
But yeah, it is and like a lot of your work is very sculptural.
Mhm.
That it's a great advantage to be able to switch between the two without too much difficulty. And that's why I asked you earlier about the larger machines. Do you have access to larger machines? Because sometimes sculpture work you need bigger machines. But yeah, listen, um, um, yeah. So the sculpture work is nice. You kind of use a good bit in your work, don't you?
Yes, yes, sculpture work is important for me. I also have a cutting machine in my studio, in my future studio. So I can use big wheels as
Big
well.
wheels. Way to
I
go.
like that.
Very good. Um,
Yes.
Alison, or sorry, not Alison, Pavlina, we'll leave it there. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this a second time. I'm sorry for the hiccups. I'm sure we got it recorded this time. And we'll leave it there. I'll just say thank you very much for joining me this morning. I'm
Thank
going to
you.
stop the recording.
Thank you
I'm
so
going
much.
to